Welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Evan Crean. My pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast.
My name is Megan Kearns. My pronouns are she, her. I write film reviews for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast. I too am a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and a member of Gallica, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics.
And my name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm also a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
Yeah,
yes,
you are.
Yes, in fact.
You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We are here, as always, to talk about movies, and we have 3 movies we're going to be talking about today. But before we get to those movies, I want to mention that over on our Patreon this week, our Patreon exclusive audio, we are talking about the 2016 Christmas horror, Better Watch Out. And better watch out for this conversation, patrons, because it's red hot.
It's a doozy.
Yeah, it's a doozy of a conversation. Things got a little bit heated, a little bit emotional, but it's okay. It was a lot of fun. So if you're a patron, definitely go check that out. If you're not a patron, please consider joining. This would be quite a fun first exclusive audio to listen to. For $5 a month, you get weekly exclusive episodes, and you can also vote in our monthly polls. And while I'm talking about Patreon, I want to say a thank you to our sponsor piece patron, Heather Sachs. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks so much, Heather.
Moving on to the main episode, we have 3 movies, as I mentioned. We're going to be talking about Queer, we're going to be talking about Flow, and we're going to talk about Nightbitch. And apparently the theme of this week's movies are one-word titles. So there you go. I'm sure they'll have more in common, as they often do. But first, let's hear about Queer, which Megan saw. So it's directed by Luca Guadagnino, written by Justin Kuritzkis. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And it's is it based on a book by William S. Burroughs?
Yes.
Cool.
It is indeed.
Sweet. And it stars Daniel Craig and Jason Schwartzman and anyone else of note?
Of note?
Leslie Manville.
Leslie Manville, yeah.
Okay, great. And I'll do the IMDb summary, and then Megan, you take it away.
Oh, Dave saw it too.
I saw it too.
Dave. Oh,
yeah.
Why did I think that only Megan had seen it? Okay, great. So both of you can take it away and tell me more about the movie. Let's do IMDb and let's see how wrong IMDb is. In 1950s Mexico City, an American expat in his late 40s leads a solitary life amidst a small American community. However, the arrival of a young student stirs the man into finally establishing a meaningful connection with someone. How did IMDb do?
It's all right.
I don't think that he's a student, is he? Isn't he a Navy veteran?
Yeah, he's a veteran. Yeah, he's young. Like, he's young enough to be a student, but yeah.
Right.
But maybe he is a student. I don't know.
Tell us more.
I mean, something that description leaves out is a lot of the weird surrealism that happens in the film.
Yeah, I imagine you wouldn't find that necessarily in a plot description.
No.
Yeah.
So it's surreal. It's called Queer. I can take a guess that the title is descriptive of the content of the story.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
Daniel Radcliffe's character is a queer man.
Daniel Radcliffe?
I mean, whatever.
Daniel whatever.
Craig. Yes, and
they're both Englishmen.
Yes, Daniel Craig. He is a queer man, and the film is broken up into chapters. And the first one is titled "Are You Queer?" And that there's a lot of conversation about who's queer and being able to tell who's queer, and and his character Lee, he often is spending time with guys who don't want to spend time with him, where they're like, oh, thank God that guy's gone. And he has like kind of a like he's supposed to be awkward, but because it's Daniel Craig and he's like, I'm sorry, he's like I can't get James Bond like out of my head.
Mhm.
Like I think he does a great performance, but he's still him, and so it's hard to, he still looks suave. It's hard to buy into this notion that he's awkward, even though he is doing kind of weird, awkward things. Like when he tries to get the attention of Eugene Allerton, the young guy who's the veteran, who he finds very attractive, like immediately, like, he gets slow motion camera and like he can't stop staring at him. He does like in a bar, he does like a weird little like jig, like a weird dance to kind of like say hi. And it's like, so he does like these weird little things like that. But yeah, and so they start spending like a lot of time together, but he's not sure if Allerton is queer or not, because he also spends a lot of time with a woman who he plays like chess with in this bar, and so she might be his girlfriend, not sure. So yeah, they spend a lot of time together and they end up hooking up, and they end up having sex, and then they end up traveling to South America. But this whole time, like, Lee is a drug addict, and which is the reason he's not in the States. And that fuels a lot of problems. And then they travel together, the two of them, and are kind of having a great time. But Lee is obsessed with finding this plant, which ends up being ayahuasca. And then they run into Leslie Manville in the forest, who's a botanist, who's super weird. And she's like, and people keep warning him, like, this is not going to get you high the way you think it is. This is not going to get you high the way you want to be. It's going to open up a door. It's going to make you face yourself. And yeah. And then Lee and Allerton eventually do take it. And then they have this kind of weird, trippy experience where their bodies kind of meld together. And it's almost like this kind of dancey maneuvering of their bodies. And then they go their separate ways. And then the movie jumps ahead 2 years, and Lee has not seen him since. And yeah, and then it jumps way ahead where he's an old man and he's like dying, still thinking about this relationship. So yeah, it's a weird.
Okay.
It's a weird
good
movie.
old age makeup, though.
It was good old age makeup. That's true. So yeah, a weird movie.
But did you like it? Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, not really.
50-50?
Yeah, not really. I liked
You
Daniel
both
Craig.
said,
I know.
I
We
found
both
very
did.
funny.
Yeah, and like, but I don't know. I'm very curious what you found, Dave. But like, I wanted this to get either weirder or less weird. Like, to me, it's like not weird enough.
It towed a line that was kind of unsatisfying.
Yeah, and I found I felt this weird emotional distance from it. And
yes.
Yeah, and like, I was not invested in their relationship at all. I could have given less than two shits. Did not care. Yeah, I just did not care at all. And this could have been an interesting exploration of addiction, but it didn't feel interesting to me at all. So it felt to me very tedious and like it was just treading water. And I was really surprised by that, just because I love other films by Luca Guadagnino. I love Suspiria. I absolutely love Bones and All. I think that's a brilliant and beautiful film, and very like heart-wrenching. Like, it's so good. So I like Call Me by Your Name. I think that's a great film too. So I just was really surprised that this just for me had like, and I wasn't enamored with Challengers the way a lot of people were, but it has this kind of frenetic energy just kind of thrumming through it. And this just to me was very inert, very tedious, very emotionally distant in a way that I just found extremely off-putting.
Wow.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't think that I disliked it quite the way Megan did, but I disliked it. I'm right down the middle. I cannot recommend this movie to people, but there are some things about it that are just such strange choices.
Okay. Tell us more.
Like, well, for one thing, Lee's character is, I think one of the things that when you're adapting William S. Burroughs that you need to keep in mind is, even though he's not always the protagonist in his stories, he is most of the time the protagonist in his stories, and he was a weird fucking dude. Aside from the fact that he was queer in a time where it could, be really bad for you. I mean, this is a guy who shot his wife in the head playing William Tell.
Which is in the movie.
The movie, which I really didn't like because if you think about Cronenberg's Naked Lunch, I always think that movie is not Burroughs, but it's Burroughsian, right? And Peter Weller even kind of speaks with that really low-pitched drawl that William S. Burroughs had. Daniel Craig's doing something different. It's not like he's playing what's the Kentucky Fried detective he plays? What's his name?
Benoit Blanc.
Yeah.
Benoit Blanc.
Oh yes, Benoit Blanc.
He's kind of doing Benoit Blanc without the accent in this.
Interesting. Huh.
Jared Leto's hard kombucha. Sorry, I can't help but think of it.
And one of the things is Lee's not unlikable. He's awkward. He's socially awkward, and he, I think one of the things is he says at one point, he's like, I can't tell if this guy is queer or that guy's queer or what, and it's like, I think his detector might be off, and that's why it's like so hard for him sometimes. He's like, he just wants to meet people to like fuck, but a bunch of them happen to be straight, so. And then I think a big problem that I had in this is I don't really know a lot of Drew Starkey's work. He plays Eugene Allerton, but he has the charisma of a fucking plant.
He's fucking
in this movie.
Terrible. It's terrible.
It's so like watching him and that fucking weird smirk he has most of the time.
Right? And especially compared to Daniel Craig, who's like so good in this and such a great actor.
Yeah, I think Daniel Craig on the whole is quite a fine actor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure that this performance works for me in its entirety. But here's something that I do think it works in part. I really was put off by like the first 30 or 40 minutes of this. Like I really didn't like it, like at all. And I was like, I can't believe that I have to sit through 2 hours and 17 minutes of this. Because stupid me, I looked at the runtime beforehand. And then when it showed Lee cooking up heroin, I was like, now I'm interested.
It's funny. That's when I got interested too.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't realize that this was going to be a junkie story. And then I remembered that queer is it's tied to junkie and, it's the same character, but
isn't it like a loose sequel sort of?
They say it's a loose sequel. I mean, you could say that all of his stuff. Now, I have not read Burroughs' entire catalog, and I haven't read any of this stuff in like 25 years. But I remember it all being very similar, the drugs and the queerness and the surrealism. And, he did with not all of his novels, but a lot of his novels, he did that thing where he would write them in the linear way. And then he would take the pages and literally cut them up and glue them back together. So, Naked Lunch is kind of the most famous version of that. Because if you read Naked Lunch, you'd be like, all right, here's this scene here. And then wait, why is the rest of this scene 152 pages later? This is bizarre. So, now here's the other thing though. I was interested in the heroin addiction. That scene when Daniel Craig cooks up his shot from the beginning, unwrapping the Mexican brown dope, as we would have called it in No Country for Old Men, and dumping it in, and the water, and the Zippo lighter under the spoon, and then shooting up, and then just him staring off into space for what, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I was like, now here's a movie where nothing's happening. I'm intrigued. And you could say that everything is happening because
everything is happening in that scene.
The moment you see somebody doing heroin, you're like, well, I know this person's life is going off a fucking cliff. There's no casually doing heroin.
No.
It's way too much effort for one thing.
Right.
If you're shooting it. If you're smoking it, I don't, maybe it's easier. I don't know.
Or snorting it. Some people apparently do, which is just bonkers.
Blows my mind.
Yikes.
So, and then they go to South America, and the beginning of that is interesting to me too, because when Lee is dope sick, that was interesting to me too, because I was just like, I was actually invested in well, how's he going to, not in the dope sickness itself, but it's like, how's he going to get out of this? You know? And what's Allerton going to, that's the one time I was interested in what Allerton was going to do. And then the thing with, finding Leslie Manville on the ayahuasca, that didn't really work for me. And it's because like trippy stuff is so subjective.
It's hard to do. Yeah.
I don't really have any interest in it. I don't think that it's bad, but I also don't think it's compelling narratively to like watch their bodies sort of meld and sort of do this dance. And then I thought the ending was unsatisfying in a good way,
interesting. Okay.
Because Lee is back in Mexico City and things aren't working. They're better, but they're still not working out for him. And unfortunately, you have to see Jason Schwartzman doing a tepid Allen Ginsberg impersonation, even though his character's even though his character's name is Joe. And that like makeup they had him in was bizarre too. But there were other things that I liked about it. Like some of the photography reminded me of all movies. Megan, this will probably surprise you. It reminded me of Carell, if you've seen it. Not the staginess of
Carell, the dinnerware.
Oh, jeez.
No, Carell, the Fassbinder's last film. Fassbinder's last film, and it's like this really. Well, the movie is what it is, but I will say that the exterior sets in particular are these bright the lighting is this bright Technicolor, borderline garishness that is very, very artificial on purpose. And the sets are sets. And I couldn't tell whether the Mexico City stuff, the exteriors were sets or not. They looked like sets to me. And then some of the lighting appeared to be that sort of bright Technicolorish, but only it's not an exact comparison. And I also don't think that I don't think otherwise. I think the comparisons with Carell begin and end there.
I was going to. I'm sorry. I was going to say I just want to put a pin in it because I have thoughts about that about the artificiality of it. So I think you're onto something.
Yeah. Thank you. And then finally, I just also didn't like. In addition to Drew Starkey being charismaless, Allerton's just kind of a fickle asshole. So.
It's funny that you say that because it does seem like he is, but then I'm also like, or is he trying to find out his queerness? Because throughout the film he says, or I shouldn't say throughout the film, but like there's the kind of imagined conversation, and then there is that conversation where he's like, I'm not queer, I'm disembodied. And so it's like, is he struggling with his queerness, to try to reconcile, whether he's queer, whether he's gay, whether he's not, straight, whatever. And so I found that component of it could have been interesting. But again, you need a much more talented actor to pull off that kind of conflict internally.
Well, what's the pin you wanted to?
Thank you. Yeah. So the movie, I found there are a lot of I liked these choices, and they're kind of jarring in that, like, Come As You Are is one of the songs playing.
I liked that.
And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And then
Musicology by Prince, one of his great latter day songs.
And then there's also playing in one of the bars, there's Malagueña Solarosa, which is playing at the end of Kill Bill Volume 2. Then there's also the plane shots when they're traveling that look super, super fake. And I'm like, this is intentionally fake. And then you also have the one of the conversations they're talking about Zihuatanejo, which is a town, but it's a town specifically in Shawshank Redemption. And so I'm like, there's all these little pulls and references to movies. and to music that's not of the period. And I'm like, I think it's to reinforce this artificiality that things are not what they seem and that everything is very unreliable. So I liked that. I thought that was I think those are really smart choices. And they're kind of disjointed in a way that isn't hand holding, but is kind of expecting the audience to kind of follow along on this journey and kind of like notice these things. But if you don't notice, I don't think you're missing out on anything. So I really liked that aspect of it.
Yeah, I thought that I agree with you on that. I thought the music choices were all of the music that was not period was good, and all the music that was period I find kind of irritating in the way period music irritates me sometime, which is like we're playing this, rootin' tootin', swing band from 43, so it's 1943.
But yes, thanks Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. Once again, doing a great score.
But the other thing about this is like, in all of the Bill Lee is an unreliable narrator.
Yes.
So
very much so.
I think that it's kind of hard to nail down anything that's happening here as actually happening the way I'm sure it all happened, but maybe not the way he thinks it did.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a thinker. I don't know how much I liked it though, that I want to keep thinking about it. So there's that too. I don't dislike it at all. I mean, I dislike the first 30 or 40 minutes, but then I got into it. But the ayahuasca thing and like Leslie Manville's character, and I was just like, can you stop pointing that fucking gun in his face, man? I'm afraid you're going to shoot him. I'm like, well, obviously she's not going to shoot the main character. This isn't to live. Anyway, so I was going to mention a movie and then I didn't. So
it's true.
That's where I come down.
Okay. So kind of it sounds like for both of you, not like a horrible but kind of like there's some good stuff and
Yeah.
Yeah, there's good things here. It just didn't all for me to come together and work.
Right.
Fair. All right, well, why don't we move on then to the next movie on our agenda, which is Flow. And Flow is an animated film, and it is written and directed by, oh gosh, I hope I pronounce this correctly, Gins Zolbalodis, and co-written by Matas Kaza. And it is about a cat. And I'll read the IMDb summary just for yucks, as always. Cat is a solitary animal, but as its home is devastated by a great flood, he finds refuge on a boat populated by various species and will have to team up with them despite their differences. Definitely not the worst IMDb summary, but yeah, it's pretty straightforward premise. It's an animated film, and as mentioned, it's about a cat teaming up with other animals to survive this enormous flood. And yeah, there's a dog and a group of dogs in the beginning, and one of those dogs becomes part of this crew. There's a capybara, there is a lemur, there is some type of bird. I'm not exactly sure what kind, but it's big and kind of scary when it first shows up. And am I missing other animals? There's the capybara, the dog, the other dogs, the lemur.
Mm-hmm. Those are all the animals.
Bird.
Those are all the animals on the boat that kind of go on the journey.
Yeah,
there's also the whale that they encounter.
The Leviathan, yeah.
Yeah.
The whale, and then the thing, and then is that a giant turtle at the end? I couldn't tell exactly. But
giant turtle.
I think the whale the whale was washed up. I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to.
The whale is beached?
Yeah, it's
okay.
the whale, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was like, giant turtle, did I miss it?
Yeah.
I missed it apparently.
But yeah, I mean, like the movie just kind of very quickly gives you a little bit of setup. The cat is very solitary, living on its own, and there's a pack of dogs chasing a rabbit, and then all of a sudden this flood comes, and there's a boat with some dogs on it, and then there's another boat. I forget exactly how it all happens, but basically, like the cat, this cat befriends this dog, or the dog more appropriately befriends the cat because the cat's kind of skeptical of it. And then there's the flood just comes very quickly. It starts taking over the area. It takes over the cat's home and has to climb to the top of this like crazy high cat sculpture mountaintop, and then ends up in a boat with these other animals. There's the capybara and the cat are the first kind of together, and then they find the bird, the lemur, and end up meeting up with the other dog. And it's a kind of straightforward like story, but I think the big things about this are both the style of the animation, which I think is quite breathtaking, and the interaction between the animals, and the fact that this is a dialogueless movie. Like, the animals make noises and they communicate with each other and they have interactions, but they're not speaking. There's no subtitles. It kind of just is this straightforward narrative about animals surviving this, I would say, biblical level flood. We don't see any humans, but I'm kind of basically picturing this as like animals surviving, the flood. The animals that didn't make it on the ark, and Noah and the ark are off somewhere else, and that these animals somehow survived when there's no
and a lot of elk.
Yeah.
Don't forget all the elk.
It's
Lots
true.
of elk.
Mm-hmm.
It's a secretary bird. That's what it's called.
Thank you. I had no idea what it was called, or even if it was a real bird, to be honest.
It's a real
either.
bird. The interesting thing about it is all the animals that are on the boat are from different parts of the world.
Yes, they are. Because I was like, lemurs are in Madagascar. Capybaras are from South America. They are not from the same place.
The bird is from Africa.
Yeah.
And cats are cats.
Yep.
Right. And dogs are dogs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's true. But what did you both think of this? Megan, what did you think?
Oh my God, I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I cannot say that enough. I knew I would enjoy this. I feel like I could just tell because it's animals, it's journey. I love that.
It's an incredible journey, you might say.
Wink, yes. But yeah,
They
I mean,
might be
like,
homeward bound at some point,
right? Yeah, but the notion of a found family and looking for a new home and a quest for that, I absolutely loved that. I love the way these disparate animals come together and end up working together and trusting each other. I thought it was an incredibly beautiful story. I liked the animation. This reminded me. It's so fascinating to me because it reminded me of other dialogueless movies like The Red Turtle, Robot Dreams, which wrecked my fucking soul. It is the most beautiful and wrenching film. And then it also reminded me of video games. Like there's a cat video game where a cat is going through a post-apocalyptic landscape called Stray. And then there's also, and then there's the video game Submerged, where it's completely battle-free, but you're exploring sunken terrains and flooded terrains. But then it also reminded me of the video game Journey, which is completely dialogue free as well, and is this beautiful moving piece where you're on a quest. And sometimes if you do, if you play online, you can play with another person too, and you have to communicate, but without words. And so anyway, like, it reminded me of all of these wonderful stories. But yet it's doing its own thing. Like, it does not feel derivative, but still feels like it's like nodding to other beautiful pieces of art. I just adored this. Loved it. Thought it was wonderful.
Awesome. Glad to hear it.
And I love that they used real animal sounds. I love that. It was great.
Did not know that. That's cool. Dave, let me guess, you hated it.
No, I didn't hate it.
I was teasing. I knew you were gonna like this. You gave me such a look. I was totally teasing.
Such a
you.
look
Come
of
on,
disgust.
Man.
I did not know.
Well,
I did not
disgust, just confusion. He was in shock. Listeners, Dave actually turned his head and gave me a look.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot. I don't know that I found it as emotionally rich as Megan did. I think that's maybe because I was caught up in the survival elements so much. but I really liked that we have a cartoon animated cat who looks and acts like a cat.
Yes.
Yes, very much so.
But the walking, the meowing, the hissing, the laying back the ears, and I like that all the animals have such distinct personalities.
Yes.
Which is really smart. And I also thought that the fight that the secretary birds have over whether they're going to eat the cat or not.
Brutal.
And the secretary bird like protecting the cat. Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the other one like calling over one of his friends to break the other one's wing.
Yeah, I was devastated.
That was
during
rough.
That scene.
Yeah.
That was rough.
And then he can't join his flock. Oh my God.
And then just leaving them all to die. Yeah. It's like, well, we're not going to eat them, but we're not going to help you either.
Right.
But I also like that the bird, even though it was kind of a dick about it, took over. They all learned how to like steer the boat.
Right.
And the bird kind of became the boat captain.
Yeah, I loved that too. It had a very steady, claw on the helm.
It was easy for it to do the one leg thing, one leg on the ground, one leg on the whatever you call that on a boat, the rudder. And I also really liked it when the bird, I'm not sure if the bird went to bird heaven or died or what, but when it floated up into the cosmos, I was like, first of all, this is that Paul Mescal, Andrew Scott movie ending.
Yes, All of Us Strangers.
All of Us Strangers.
Oh.
But also, I'm just kind of like, I feel kind of happy for the bird in a way. Like the bird's like going to like a peaceful place that seems cool.
Ascended to
it's so
to Valhalla.
sad and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the cat kind of wants to go but doesn't and can't go with the bird.
Yeah, I like how the cat is.
That's what happens. The cat, it's like, no, universe says no, cat. It's not your time. You must go back to Earth.
Oh my God.
And then the cat makes it back to the boat.
Yeah.
I know.
So
that was harrowing too.
Right?
And then the boat. Then the boat gets fucked up.
Well, the waters recede and it gets stuck in a tree, and they have to try and pull it out with the animals in there. And first the dogs are helping, but then they're dogs and they chase a rabbit away. So it's just like two of them trying to pull.
But thankfully, the golden retriever stays because like looks to like about to go chase the rabbit, and then it's like, no, I'm going to stay with my family.
I'm going to stay with my friends. I really liked the lemur too. I was really, I don't know what it was, but the whole thing with the mirror, how the lemur was so broken up over that, I was just like, I don't know what it is about this lemur, but I kind of feel what you're I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
I don't know why that bothers you so much, and I don't know why I feel so badly for you.
Right?
Because you're just being a fucking lemur. But the lemur was also just kind of like nice in a strange way.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of, it's kind of what you hope the lemurs would have been like in Madagascar if they weren't such fucking assholes. Or if they weren't Sacha Baron Cohen, I guess. And then did we watch the post-credit sequence?
No.
The whale survives. You see you see the whale in the water, so you know that it flooded again.
Huh. Okay, I was wondering about that because I was wondering if maybe the whale had also joined the afterlife, and we were just kind of seeing the whale in the cosmos or something.
No.
I clearly was too impatient.
I
should have kept watching.
Well, I wouldn't have thought this movie had a post-credit sequence or mid-credit sequence or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But the ending to me was so not abrupt, but it seemed an odd choice to have them all staring at their reflections in the same puddle. And I was like, this doesn't feel like it's over. So I just watched the credits because I thought, well, maybe something else will happen. And then it did.
Right.
But I liked that. I liked how, because every other time we'd seen the cat
he was
by
alone.
themselves. Yeah. And then we see all of them together in the reflection. It was so lovely.
Yeah. Yeah, it was and very good-natured too, which, it's hard to do, I think, with movies about the apocalypse, I think.
Right? Yeah, but I like how they all help each other and in different ways. What a sweet film.
Yeah.
Evan, what did you think?
I mean, I loved this, obviously.
Yeah.
So often when I'm watching the movies that we watch for the show, I'm taking notes, and I usually do that on my phone. And this is a time where I watched the opening scene, the cat looking at itself in the reflection and through the chasing of the rabbit. And then I put my phone down and I didn't touch it the rest of the fucking movie because I
Yep.
was glued to the screen. This movie sucked me in so badly.
Yep.
With
Ditto.
its just beautiful animation, its wonderful storytelling. It just, oh my God, I got so emotionally invested in this that I couldn't look away. And it's definitely a roller coaster in a good way though. Like a lot of obstacles they have to overcome and survive, and it is, as you've both mentioned, really nice to see them working together and learning to function as a team, seeing them all meet each other, get on this boat together. All that stuff is really amazing. The ways that they act like animals in typical ways that you would expect, but also have some personification to them where they have human like personalities and interactions with each other despite the lack of dialogue. But also, Dave, you mentioned the cat and the cat acting very much like a cat, which is really, really funny, especially when the cat's kind of in moments a little bit aloof.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure I want to get involved in all this going on down here. I'm going to go do my own thing. I'm going to lay under that section of the boat or climb up to the crow's nest area of the ship and just kind of do my own thing, which, oh my God, what a scary place for a cat to be when it's a storm outside.
But also, that's also how like the cat is like chill with the secretary bird, because the cat comes out and sleeps next to the bird, and I'm like, ah. Anyway.
Yeah, all that stuff when they're all sleeping next to each other, when the cat goes and gets the fish and then is sharing the fish with the other animals on board. And then, of course, the dog eats like 3 of the fish, the one dog, and all the other dogs are like, hey, come on, man, you didn't leave me anything.
I also liked that the golden retriever always wanted to play fetch with the ball.
Yep. That
very
was
apropos.
Very funny. And I love when they meet the lemur, and the lemur has got this kind of hideout with all these different trinkets, and it's got a basket, and it's just starting to load up the basket to get on the boat. It's just like, oh, I want this, this shiny thing, and it's just like making this massive basket, but the water is rising. So I think is it the capybara that takes it? It's like, no, we need to go.
Yeah.
Yep.
We need to go. Sorry, you can't get every trinket in this little fort that you have. We need to get on this boat and get the fuck out of here.
I know, but that lemur is so sad to leave all the goodies behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this movie is wonderful, and I believe I read that this is Latvia's entry for the Oscars this year.
Yes,
for consideration, and boy is it an entry. It really just totally blew me away. I thought it was just an amazing film.
Yeah,
$10 said Inside Out 2 wins.
Oh, well, yeah, no, this isn't just Latvia's entry for like animated film. This is their entry for international film, which I think is great. Like, because animation is, I mean, this is a whole other conversation, but animation is never given the credit it deserves or the due that it deserves. It's not, so often they're considered children's films. They're not considered serious films, which is just absurd. So,
right. Well, everybody seems to mistake animation as a genre as opposed to a medium.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. I say that all the time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, well. This is a great movie.
Yeah. It's very short-sighted if you're cutting off an entire, medium of film because you're like, oh, that's for kids or whatever. Anyway, beautiful film.
I mean, Kiki's delivery service. I mean, come on.
Kiki's so good.
It's true.
So good.
Love Miyazaki movies.
Yeah. Oh, Studio Ghibli films are just beautiful, and will rip your heart in two.
This one did to me.
Oh my God! I know this made me cry. Oh, so good.
It's good. Good. We had tissues handy for this one. I'll tell you.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not sure I have much more to say other than this is just amazing, and people need to friggin' see it yesterday.
Yes.
Well, it's so what it is, and very, there's no mystery to it.
Right.
So what is there to explain really other than it's great?
Yeah.
So
should we move on then to talk about our last movie?
Sure.
All right. Let's move on to Nightbitch. And this is written and directed by Mariel Heller. I believe this is based on a novel
Yes.
It is.
by Rachel Yoder. Hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And it stars Amy Adams, Scoot McNairy, and one of those situations where there's a kid played by twins, Arlie Snowden and Emmett Snowden. And then there's a few other people in more kind of like supporting parts, like kind of bit players you may have seen, like Mary Holland and Zoe Chow. And yeah, let's see what IMDb has to say about this one, because I'm sure it's going to be underwhelming. A woman pauses her career to be a stay-at-home mom, but soon her domesticity takes a surreal turn. Wow, that is like vague as shit. That's so vague. But let's see. Oh, okay, here's a much better one that's also on IMDb, but it's lower down the page. A woman thrown into the stay-at-home routine of raising a toddler in the suburbs slowly embraces the feral power deeply rooted in motherhood, as she becomes increasingly aware of the bizarre and undeniable signs that she may be turning into a dog. Yes, that's a much better description. So yeah, Amy Adams plays our lead. She is raising a son who is, I believe they say in the movie, 2, almost 3 years old.
Yeah, he's almost 3 if he's talking that much.
And she's firmly in the monotony of being a stay-at-home mom, and the movie kind of opens with this very like quick cutting montage of the monotony of, the wake up, feed the kid, eat breakfast, go do whatever the day's activities are, and just trying to keep it fresh and trying to survive all of the perils of the day when, the kid doesn't sleep in a crib. She has to try and rock him to sleep every night, and he sleeps in the bed with her. To things like going to story time at the library, to trying to do finger painting at home, and he's just got paint everywhere. He's painting the walls and whatnot. And her husband, Scoot McNairy, is working one of those jobs where basically he travels all week and is really only home on the weekend. And of course, even when he's home, he's basically useless because he was always like, oh, I'm tired. Oh, or even if he says, oh, I'll take bath time, then he's spending all the time calling her. Oh, I need this. I need this. I need that. Can you bring that in here? So she is she's exhausted. She's kind of at her wit's end. She's an artist and was not kind of expecting things to be like this. She was expecting her life to turn out this way. And so it's about her kind of grappling with all these things, and then also kind of thinking back to her childhood and her mother. And she's from an Amish community, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Seems like
Yeah.
it.
And thinking about that, and then also realizing that she's starting to turn into a dog. And then there's these kind of sequences where she like fully transforms into the dog and is kind of like running around at night and with other moms that she knows who also apparently turn into dogs, but no one talks about it. It's just kind of this weird unacknowledged thing that's going.
That's why she smelled the strawberries on the
Yep.
dog and on her
strawberry
friend.
Right.
shampoo.
Yeah, and first in the movie she's kind of eschewing the other moms, becoming friends with them, and then she actually does get to know them and realize that they're all pretty cool, and then she kind of has her own mom friend group that she hangs out with. And then later on she basically says to Scoot McNairy, I'm kind of done with all this. I need to separate, and I need to like figure my shit out. And so she delves back into her art and gets really into that and has this really cool show that she puts on toward the end. And then Scoot McNairy gets his head out of his ass and, and realizes that he's been a schmuck, and A, needed to appreciate more all the things that she was doing, and B, be supportive of her, and C, just basically beg for forgiveness. Am I missing anything?
No, you laid it out.
Okay, good. Sweet. Okay. So what do we think? We'll start, Dave, we'll start with you this time.
Didn't love it.
No?
No, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it.
Okay.
I think part of that is because having not in the too distant past been through all of this parental stuff, I didn't really enjoy watching it because I've got my 2 kids and they don't sleep in bed with me, and it's great. So
Yeah, that seemed like kind of a very not smart decision on her part to not
well,
have
she
the kids
even
sleep in
says
their own-
that when she's talking
Well,
to
yeah.
herself.
She acknowledges that it was not a good decision to set things up that way. But yeah, it's kind of like your kid needs to sleep in their own bed, and this is very healthy. And
I mean, now I don't know what my boys are what's gonna happen to them later in life, but right now, like Ted is asleep when you shut his bedroom door when you're leaving, and Henry goes to sleep. I mean, he's woken us up a couple times during the podcast, or woken us up. He's gotten me during the podcast.
We
That's
were
right.
taking a little nap at Spoiler
I'm
Beats.
sleepwalking through this show each week, peeps. So sleep training, it's not evil. That's all I'm going to say. Well, Ted, like I always tell people, Ted sleep trained himself, but because he did. He's just like, I'll just nap now, and that was it. That's just what he did. But so all of that, and I just don't really think that there's anything in here that, I mean, pat's not the right word, but I don't think I'm seeing a story that hasn't been told before. And right down to the, just like when Scoot McNairy comes home, and I was just like, am I now going to have to watch him just be stupid?
The answer is yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's
Have
just
you
like,
met men, Dave? Have you met men?
well, of course, but like, and I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm saying like, you would not believe the stories that my friends tell me about what their husbands do. And it's like, how do you fucking put up with that? I don't even understand, And, I don't say that to them because I want to have my friend, but I just, watching this, I mean, it's a good thing that Amy Adams is Amy Adams, because she really carries this through a lot of the predictability and et cetera, et cetera. Even down to the very opening scene when she's in the grocery store and she runs into her former colleague, and she's like, oh, how's it going? And then she starts explaining how horrible it is. And like, she's not really, this is what she's imagining. And then it's going to cut back to it. And that's exactly what happened. I was like, well, I know what I'm in for, and I'm not here for it. So I was more or less checked out. And I also did not appreciate the whole, and this isn't good or bad. I mean, I think it's clumsy, but the whole, like, is she really turning into a dog? Yes. No. Is it because she's just turning into a dog, or did her weird grandmother in the Amish community like put a chicken foot in a pot and boiled it, and now she turns into a dog? I mean, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Or is it
aspect,
her rage that's getting out of control?
Or is it her rage?
Yeah.
I think it would have been better if it had just been like, she's just fucking turning into a dog, like no magic, no whatever. She's just turning into a dog because that's what this has driven her to. That I would have gotten on board with. But this whole, maybe it's mystical, maybe it's a spell, maybe, fuck all that shit.
Yeah, I would agree. It is one
I
of the
agree
things
with
I
you.
think that doesn't quite work about the movie is that when you see her going through these kind of physical transformations, this hair on her back, the extra nipples, and then it's like not clear because like she then has sex with Scoot McNairy in the showers. It was like, did she have those? I feel like he would have remarked on those extra nipples. But
he remarks on everything else.
Right.
Although
So,
she
and
did
then
warn him beforehand. So.
right. So was that
Maybe
happening?
he was
Was
prepared.
it not happening? Yeah. Then she was starting to grow hair out of like I don't know if it was supposed to be a tail that was coming in, but it
Yes.
looked like a weird
Seems
boil
like it.
that she lanced and then pulled hair out. It was gross, but it was just kind of like, okay, are we fully embracing this or not? And I think that's one of the things that didn't quite work for me about the movie is that it kind of like leaned into it, and then toward the end of the movie it kind of just shoved it to the side, kind of like, I don't know if it was more that, oh, things in her life are like working again, so she doesn't feel like she needs to transform into the dog anymore or have this kind of like dog thing going on. But by the end it's kind of like we've almost forgotten about it entirely.
Except for that dream where she visits her mom and she's the dog.
Yes.
And her
Yes.
mom is stroking her lovingly. And it's like, can we stop with the fucking mixing the, just fucking make up your goddamn mind, for Christ's sake. That's what I meant by clumsy.
Okay. Megan, how about you?
Yeah, I'm sad to say, because this is one of my most anticipated films of the year, because I love Mariel Heller, love Can You Ever Forgive Me, love Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. I really like Diary of a Teenage Girl. So I really like how she can mix, like with Diary of a Teenage Girl, she kind of mixes surrealism with coming of age story. I really like how in Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, she takes the traditional biopic format and kind of twists that. So I was like, okay, I'm here for this. I'm here for a female rage story about motherhood and shitty societal expectations and shitty men, and how, that's going to be body horror and it's going to be fucking great. And yeah, I was really underwhelmed, and I'm so sad to say that. I think Amy Adams is okay in this. I think she's been a lot better in a lot of other things. But when she's angry, when she's like actually unleashes anger, like on Scoot McNairy, I think she's great. Those I think are the best parts. Like my favorite part is when she's showering and he's like, "Hey, we have all this raw meat, but we don't have milk. I need milk." And she's like, "Go to the fucking store." Like I do this all the time by myself, go to the store.
I know.
And then
just
she's
so
like,
stupid.
yeah, and she's like, I also need you to go get me tampons because I feel my period coming on and it's going to be a gusher or something like that.
Right.
And I was like, I laughed out loud and I'm like, that is the best. As someone with heavy periods, I'm like, yes, please. This is amazing. Because too often in films, we don't see women bleeding heavily. We don't see bodily changes, and bodily changes are seen as gross and out of control and loss of control, which I find so fascinating, especially in the horror realm. But like both of you, I wish it had leaned into the dog transformation more. I wish we'd gotten more of that. I wish it had really leaned into body horror rather than being this comedy, this like dark comedy kind of hybrid, which just did not work for me for the most part as far as the humor goes.
It just wasn't funny.
No, it wasn't funny. And so that didn't land. And then so when we do get the dog transformation, it kind of felt like little cheesy at times rather than being like this reclamation of fury and rage and wild abandon that I feel like it should have been. It should have culminated in that. And it just, for me, kind of didn't. I like the topics it's exploring. Like, Dave, you said something interesting about it being predictable, and you're right, it is. And I think part of the predictability, part of it's the films. There's some flaws with the film, but I think part of it is that we've all seen this for decades, centuries. This has happened. I mean, there's a reason why Arlie Russell Hochschild, the sociologist, the reason why her seminal book, The Second Shift, about how when women go to work and they come home and then they have to do work all over again in, child, rearing and cleaning and cooking and all of those things. There's a reason that's still a relevant, book, because it still happens.
Right.
Where men in hetero relationships do not pick up the slack and they treat childcare like babysitting. Like, I love that. I love that he's like, well, so I'm going to babysit the kid. And she's like, it's not babysitting if it's your kid. And I was like, thank God, because too many stupid men say that. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what is wrong?
You're just
with
watching your child. It's part of your job.
You're a parent. That's what you should be doing. Parent. Like, it's so aggravating. So I love the topics it's exploring. I really do. And I appreciate that it's delving into them. And this is clearly coming from a very personal place. Like Mariel Heller said that she became a stay-at-home mom, and that's something she'd never anticipated that. And so she felt like she lost herself. So I really like that it's delving into those things. But I think there's certain things that kind of undo the film, like the narration. I think the narration is annoying. I don't think it's necessary. I get why it's done, but I just don't think it works. And I just wish it had leaned more into body horror and really kind of delved even more into rage than it does. It kind of feels tepid. It kind of feels just like, a little bit lackluster, and I'm really disappointed to say that because I think there's some good elements here. It just didn't all gel for me, sadly.
Well, I think I like this more than you two, but I mean, you've heard my kind of major critique about the body horror dog elements not kind of having a full through line to the movie, and not, I don't think, you both were talking about how Queer was kind of towing this line, and not, it either need to be weirder or less weird. And yeah, I think they either needed to go more into this, probably just more into it. I don't know if
Yep.
less would have necessarily worked.
No,
but
I think more.
definitely more. I mean, I'm a little closer to this now with a 1-year-old, so I feel like I can identify a lot more with the parenting elements of it, and so that definitely spoke to me. And I think, although you've both mentioned it's not stuff we haven't seen before, I do think it's a pretty effective commentary on parenting. And I mean, watching this with, Shauna, who right now is a stay-at-home mom, like, I definitely feel like a lot of this resonated with her, and it was very like very emotionally resonant. And I think maybe hit a little too close to home at places. But so I think it does that well, and I think it has good things to say. Megan, you mentioned that I think there's good themes that it's exploring.
Yep, totally agree.
So I don't know. I found it worked for me a little bit more on an emotional level and what it was saying, and I pride myself on not being the Scoot McNairy character.
Thank God.
Yeah, we got to get me more men who are good parents out there, good partners.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. So I don't know. I think this movie worked more for me. I feel very mixed about the narration. Sometimes I think it works, and sometimes I think it's kind of overbearing and goes on way too long. The kind of rants that she goes on feel like they're just whatever. But I did laugh at the line. I think she said, "I could crush a walnut with my vagina." That was a very funny kind of line. Wasn't that she was at the dinner and just no one heard her say it?
Yeah.
I also just found myself kind of grappling with the, like, how much of this is she actually saying aloud versus like, and people just aren't listening, and how much of it is in her head, because there is a moment where she says something aloud and Scoot McNairy acknowledges it. And so I'm thinking, okay, how much is in her head and how much is she actually saying? So I think this worked for me a little bit more than you two, but overall, and I think it's kind of stuck with me in a way where I've been thinking a lot about it. So I think it succeeded more for me. I'm bummed it didn't quite work as well for you, but I understand all the reasons why it didn't.
I'm glad it worked for you. I'm glad it worked for one of us.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I will say I do like that Amy Adams character, which is absurd that she doesn't have a fucking name. She's called Mother in like the credits, which is just crazy to me. Anyway, it just incenses me. Considering other women in the story have names, thank God. But anywho, I do like that she reconnects with her art, and I do like that she at first scoffs at the book, the library book,
the book babies, they call
book
it.
Babies.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was the thing. I knew there was alliteration there. But I like that she then comes to find them as like a really supportive, lovely circle of friends. Where even when they have differences, they can all relate to each other and they're all supportive and nurturing. Like, I think that's lovely. Yeah. And much like Dave said, I'm glad it worked for you. I really do wish it had worked more for both of us.
Yes. Agreed. Yeah. I did really like the editing in this. I think generally that was a strong suit of the movie, especially when we're getting those kind of long days kind of bleeding all together. The whole routine of get up, make breakfast, kid plays on floor, kid goes out, we take kid to the library, etc., etc. I think that was all very, very well done.
Yeah, it definitely underscores the monotony of her day. Yeah.
And I totally get the impulse to want to not be friends with people when you're like, oh, okay, it's just all about like parenting stuff. But it's like, parents are also people, and I mean, I've gone to some of those library, like book reading-y kind of things, and people are there. It's like, it's good to get out and see each other and talk to each other and hang out. Cause yeah, you can meet actually really cool people at those kinds of parent things.
You can, but the other cool thing about doing those, and I never did them much because I feel very much about them the way Amy Adams does at the beginning. I don't want to be around other parents' kids more than the parents. My kids are great. Your kids,
not so much.
But you can walk into any one of those rooms and spot the douchebag immediately. It's amazing. Like you can spot Scoot McNairy, like the guy who's just like, duh, you know, what happened to my weird fun wife? Well, what happened?
Died in childbirth. I love that.
What happened to your fucking brain, dickhead? Jesus.
Yeah,
your fucking empathy muscle.
Right? What a tool.
For a minute there, I thought that was going to go in a direction of maybe and then when he started, I was like, no. It was all just so irritatingly predictable to me. Evan, you just talked about how much you liked it. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Like I said, I understand the reasons why it didn't all work. I mean, I think as you mentioned, you have a little more emotional distance from it. For me, it is more immediate.
Yeah.
So I am thinking about all these things like more acutely.
I will say, I think that did work, Scoot McNairy's predictability, because there are men like that.
Oh, well, sure.
So many.
So many, too.
Yeah.
And if you read Am I the Asshole on Reddit,
it's every one of them.
It's a wash with those. And it's like so often the men going, I don't understand what I did wrong. And it's like, yeah, you fucking did. I mean,
yeah.
Dave, we were just talking about this.
We were. The guy who took paternity leave to help his wife with child rearing and then said, hey, can I go play touch football for 40 minutes? And did. And she was like, sure. And then she was mad at him. And it's like, well, what did you fucking expect, dickhead? Of course she's going to say yes. You know, she's not going to be like, no, I'm the killjoy. Stay home with me. Fuck off, dude. Fucking dumbass. Anyway,
yes. So don't be like
I'm
that.
judging all other parents. Yeah.
Don't be that guy. That is the key.
I mean, this is the thing. When you're with your kids, you're with your kids. That's, you know, sometimes it's a real fucking drag, you know, but.
And you can love your kids and be
great.
Exhausted by the end of the day of taking care of them. Be happy that it's time for bed.
But then there's the other thing. It's like, well, now they're old enough to get their own drinks out of the refrigerator, but do you want them to? You know, I mean,
yeah, I could see that becoming an issue. Like, climbing the shelves, opening cabinets, dropping things. Yeah, that's a whole.
I keep all the kid-friendly stuff on like my refrigerator's on the top, so I keep it on the bottom shelf in the refrigerator, so both of them can reach their water, their milk, actually that's all they drink is water and milk. So occasionally I will give them some root beer because it doesn't have caffeine, and they love it. But do I really want them opening up a gallon of milk themselves?
Yeah, probably
These
not.
This 9-year-old with skinny arms? I don't know. I mean, anyway, that's a tangent.
Yeah. Makes sense. It's a logical tangent, I think.
I was going to say, I think it's appropriate considering there are a lot of tangents in this film. So, yeah.
And I will say one final thing that I also liked about the movie is when she embraced the whole dog thing in her parenting style too, and just saying, okay, like the librarian that she talks to is like, oh, you're playing dog with your son. I did that. I played that with my son. And then she just leads into it like, we're just going to eat out of dog bowls and we're just going to lay in a dog bed, and it works for her. It gets her kid out of the bed and sleeping in his own bed. It's weird, but it works.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My dog liked to sleep on a pillow in front of the radiator. I mean, I don't know why. Didn't usually have the heat on, but all right, you can sleep there. That's fine.
There you go. I was like, speaking of the librarian, that's Jessica Harper from Suspiria too.
It sure is.
So yeah, it's nice to see her.
Yeah. I think I prefer her screaming and scared of witches, but okay.
I mean, Suspiria is a brilliant film. So yes, I do too. Yeah.
All right.
But
so let's.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think there are some good things here, but yeah, just.
All right. So let's bring it in for a landing here. So would we recommend it? Yay or nay?
Ooh.
I can't recommend it unless the way we describe it, not the parts where we're like, I don't know if it works, but the way we describe it is like kind of your thing.
Yeah.
So
okay, sounds like a nay then. And I think we all would heartily recommend Flow.
Yes.
What about Nightbitch? Where do we land on Nightbitch?
I'm a meh on it.
It's not a hard pass, but I think it's a pass.
Yeah, because I was like, I don't think it's bad. I just
Right.
for me, it's
it
like
just doesn't quite work.
Yeah, it's just it's just very underwhelming. But I think there's good things about it, so it's just
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I mean, and I liked it more, so I would say see it.
Yeah.
So that's where I land. All right, cool. So that wraps up another episode of Spoiler Piece Theater. We want to say a huge thank you to our editor, Otto Clamor. Otto, thank you so much for making us sound so great week after week.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Otto.
Otto.
You can find us anywhere you get podcasts, but you can also go to our website, spoilerpiece.com. You can find us on social media. We are Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook. We're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram. Or have we made our way over to the place where skies are bluer? Yes, I think
we
have.
sure
did.
have. Dave
Yeah.
set it up, and it is a go.
Sweet. So we're on Blue Sky now as well. So hit us up. And if you want to get in touch with us, there's a couple ways you can do that. You can email us, spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call.
At 862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a message, send us a text. We'd love to hear from you. Thoughts on any of these movies, other movies you're watching, or just other stray things you want to ask us about. We love hearing from listeners, so feel free to reach out. And if you like the show, please consider rating and reviewing us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece. We really, really appreciate the ratings and reviews. It helps give us cred in the podcast world. And it's just very much appreciated. Helps get the word out there about us. And if you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. As I mentioned at the top of this week's episode, we talked about the 2016 Christmas horror film, Better Watch Out. And that was quite the conversation. And if you join our Patreon for $5 a month, you can get weekly bonus episodes like the one I just mentioned, access to a back catalog with hundreds of bonus episodes, and you get to vote in monthly polls of a topic of our choosing, but you get to make the choices, and that's also a lot of fun. So thinking about joining if you're not a patron. If you are a patron, thank you for your support, and thank you for listening. My name is Evan Crean. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living, and co-host of the It's the Pictures podcast. You can follow me on social media as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
My name is Megan Kearns. I write for Edge Media Network. I'm a co-host of the Slashers podcast, member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and a member of Gallica. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Twitter at Opinion S World, or on Instagram and Letterboxd at The Opinion S.
My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies. I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association, and you can find me all over the interwebs as at Dave Sees Movies. And when I say the interwebs, I mean the socials. Thanks.
The socials. But not the socials from The Outsiders.
No, not those socials.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.